Game week, baby. We got a lot of stuff that we need to cover here on the show, here on Sooner or Later Sports Show. Thanks for pulling up. You know that boy Coop. I'm Jay. Thanks for pulling up here on the YouTube channel and listening wherever podcasts are downloaded and listened to while you're here. Please wipe your feet, like, subscribe, rate, review, and give us 5 stars. You don't think we deserve it? Go ahead and give us 5 anyway, and gift it. So, on today's episode, we've got a lot of stuff that we want to cover, so we're going to make sure we get everything compacted in here, like the latest commitment. Coop's got to give his thoughts, and I got a few more opinions on it. Talk about BV's presser that went down yesterday. He had some interesting takes. Illinois State, we've got to talk about what we hope to see in that game. And we'll also dive into the depth chart and kind of how we felt about that. So, Coop, happy Wednesday, man. I'm glad that we were able to get you on.
Yeah, man. It's Jay, the next time we do a show, we're going to be breaking down a Sooner performance on the actual football field.
Yes!
That results in results. And no more talk season. Talk season is officially over.
It's out. It's out the door. We're done. Done ski. That's the best part. Yeah, we can talk football going forward, Coop. It's actual games. We can talk about injuries, who we think is going to be where and what. Of course, we're going to dive into the depth chart a little bit. Also adding in there, we may, if we have time, we'll wrap things up and talk about some of the games around the SEC that's really got our attention. So, Coop, let's jump into the most important one here. First and foremost, we'll lead the day off with this. Got a commitment. Teron Richardson, defensive lineman out of Virginia. 3-star on most of the rating sites, but I think that it's kind of odd how low he is. But when I did my breakdown on it yesterday, I felt like what jumped out to me the most with why he's rated so low is that most of his recruitment didn't really start till this year, like April, May. Yeah. Is when you start to see all the big dogs really give him his offers. And On3 posted that he's listed at 6'5". Everybody else has either 6'2" or 6'3"-ish and a half. But everybody's roughly around 290, 295. So I'm gonna go ahead and safely say he's around 6'3" and a half, maybe 6'4", 295. But I think the thing that jumped out also with him is that dude's wingspan 6'11", Coop. That's absurd. Bro. That is absurd for that size. Yeah. So if he ain't 6'5", that's wild. If he is 6'5", still pretty wild. What you think about it?
I mean, first of all, I love his frame. Kind of like what you're talking about is that goes a long way in just kind of what your projection capability is for, a defensive lineman in general. If you're at a 6'2" route, not saying that you can't be a 6'2" guy and be a big producer. Like I always go back and think of guys like Elmas Dumerville, really a shorter kid, but he wrecked shop, in college. I know he played on the Denver Broncos and the Ravens for a while, and he was part of really, really good defenses. But, with Teron, if he is 6'3", 6'3.5", so 6'3" and a half, he's going to have a lot of capabilities to do several different things. Right now, I think that big reason why the 3-star, is there is he plays in Virginia. And, when you are outside of, major recruiting hotbeds like Florida, California, Texas, typically not a lot of people have seen you. People will see the film. He plays pretty crazy on the film. He's got a lot of technique to learn. And I think that, that's why he is looking towards, coming in and being with Todd Bates is, Todd Bates can teach him a lot of the techniques, because he learns how to play with great pad level and also gets his body refined. Schmitty, he mentioned Jerry Schmidt, during his commitment, a lot of his faith-based, principles lined up with what Coach Venables wants. But he's a dude that I think probably is going to need to come in, get his body, optimized, and that's just the muscle figure. Because I think the size-wise, I mean, this is a 17-year-old kid, 6'3" and a half, 290 right now. So you come in, won't be very long before he's up over that 3 bill mark. But once he learns some of that technique stuff, that's the raw piece where, you see offers from South Carolina, from Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, Auburn, a lot of really, really higher end, tier programs. Penn State's always been known for great defensive linemen. So hopefully you see a little bit of a skyrocketing in the rankings, here over the season. It's always curious to say, what do these guys do once they've got their commitment in with a major program? Do they continue to improve, or do they just go out and they know that they know that the eyeballs are going to be on them? So I'm excited about him, and I think that his athleticism is going to be something that Chavis Bates, Venables can really, really work with. Probably a year or two contributor, and then hopefully, but his ceiling, Jay, is very, very exciting.
He has a very high ceiling, and being the 6'11" wingspan is the thing that's still absurd to me. That's ridiculous. Yeah. Long arms. That means that that's just absurd to me to have that wingspan. And you're 100% right. As a contributor, though, what's interesting to me is we're talking about this with John, and as I kind of thought about it more and more, when you look at the roster, in which we'll do that next, we're going to do, thoughts on the depth chart and everything, as well as BV's presser, that we're very young. And it's funny because, you know what, let me go ahead and pull it up now, because this was something that even like the Virginia Tech people were basically talking about when they looked at us competing. They were like, why would he go to that school? They've got all these dudes that are young and are going to play. And I was like, that's a really good point. But I see why. Because as much as y'all would, most people would balk at Coop, Oklahoma can afford to have a guy at his price point sit the bench for a bit. That's kind of the thing about it. Like, and the Virginia Tech mods were pointing out numbers and stuff. I don't believe any of them. But I do know that Oklahoma would be willing to spend on a player that has this high of an upside that you mentioned, because we've got a lot of defensive linemen. Like, we've got a bunch of sophomores, redshirt sophomores and redshirt freshmen that are going to be here for the next 2 years. So for T-Ron, his opportunity to contribute could be early if he is a genetic freak and he goes out there at 6'5" with a 7-foot wingspan and keeps growing. If you get an 8-foot one, he's definitely going to be a starter at that point. You can see if he can actually make that happen. I don't think he'll be able to get to an 8-foot wingspan. That was a joke. But at his size, his ability to contribute is going to be early. So, and it's mainly going to be all around who's here and who's ready to play. But that's the good thing about that, Coop, is he could contribute year 2. He could contribute year 3. He could start year 3. Oklahoma is in a good spot in the defensive line with really good players that we're very high on, that will be okay to be able to take 3 defensive linemen, some projects, and really mold them to play in their last couple of years in college football. So that's a big deal.
And you see, I know that the talking point of, well, it was down between Virginia Tech and OU. So, why is this a big deal? Well, let's first of all think of this. He lives in Virginia. He plays in Virginia. So this is like a situation to where it's down, with a kid, like a Granville from a couple years ago, down between Penn State and OU. Do you stay home and play close to home? For a program that West Virginia is not what they were in the Frank Beamer days. They're just not. We understand that. But West Virginia still has guys year in and year out who hit the league. And so, to be able to pull him out of Virginia with the things that you said, it shows that you're going to want to add to the depth, because I've already seen a lot of the trash talking between the LSU and Clemson boards, talking about, Clemson only has one dude on their defensive line who's really just scary. Everybody else is just a guy. And that's where a lot of the comparisons this year was, would you take Clemson's line or would you take OU's line? And I think that why OU is getting the nods for a lot of the best line out there is because of the depth, all the way through. And so if you can have a guy like T-Ron here in 2 years be your number 4 defensive tackle or nose tackle, that's a great place to be. That's where you want to be, is you want to be able to roll him out there, at the end of games, when you've got a comfortable lead and get some good seasoning and good playing time. But with the ceiling of what Tyron has is, I think his floor is probably a good rotational player. But what his ceiling is he offers a lot of those intangibles where, you get a good push-up from the defensive line. He's hard to move. But then if he's got that big wing up there up in the sky, that makes it even tougher. Because, you think of a guy like Calais Campbell. Calais Campbell was a dude, running around the defensive line at 6'6". And he got home to the quarterback quite often. He was great in space and tackling. But really one of the big things, and I remember watching so many NFL games with Calais Campbell out there, is the dude was a shoo-in for, 10 knockdowns a year at the line of scrimmage. And guess what, Jay? I'm 99% sure that, when you knock the ball down at the line of scrimmage, there's a 0% chance that a play is positive for the offense. And so he's got some of those intangible pieces that his ceiling is actually going to allow him to be a very, very exciting prospect. And if he wants to come in and get after it right from the get and force himself in there, that's what you want. That's when Brent Venables talks about competitive is you want those guys to be in and, really pressing to come in and get their snaps. And you don't need a ton out of him as a freshman. You're going to want him to be, as somebody you can rely on as a sophomore. And I think that's where Tyron's going to make a big splash.
I see that part as well. So thank y'all for pulling up. Hit the like button. New to the channel, subscribe, rate, review, give us 5. Let's jump into this depth chart to Coop. The first depth chart dropped earlier in the week. We've had a lot of people with a lot of feelings on it. Monday, I dropped a quick instant reaction on it. Been sitting on it, listening to a few other opinions, digesting the information, and I'm gonna be 100% honest. Yeah, we've lost the plot, man. We not as a team, not Oklahoma, the fan base. We as fans have lost the plot, and understanding that we're gonna preview this team in a bit, and we're gonna talk about the key things that we need to see later. So make sure you stick around for that. But real talk, Coop. When you look at this depth chart. Like, I'm looking at the depth chart now. I'm going to pull this for everybody else to see. Understand this. We're playing Illinois State. So, for us, and I don't want to go too far into it because, like I said, I want to really dive into this later, so I don't want to repeat too much information for you all on this premiere. But, Coop, when you look at the way the depth chart is configured, you can tell that it's a lot of, I want to see what you're going to do in live snaps type situation. Yeah. That's one. Two, a lot of it is being rewarded for being available. So at the presser, and this is some of the things they talked about, we can combine presser with the depth chart. That's what Ben Arbuckle and BV were really diving into was we want to reward players that were able to practice the majority of the time and be healthy. So if you with Jaden Ott down there at third, people are thinking, "Well, was he not that good?" No, it's Illinois State, and he wasn't really available for fall camp. Why play him in a game that legitimately is meaningless? Legitimately, for it in the grand scheme of things, it gives value to us as fans because we get an idea of what our team is going to look like, and there will be pieces we have to pay attention to. But overall, these are people that work their butts off in practice. They're going to start the first game of the season, be the first ones to run out for y'all to see. And a lot of these dudes are not going to play the whole game. Most of these starters won't play, especially on defense. But it's good to see them shut things down early and then, move on to the next one. So with that, get off that soapbox. When you saw the depth chart, what surprised you? What put a smile on your face? What possibly bothered you?
What put a smile on my face first, Jay, is this shows the depth. It is when you have so many things. When people see, oh, well, Michael Fasusi or Jacob Sexton, they think, well, what does that mean? Does that mean Jacob Sexton is not good enough, or does it mean Fasusi? What it means is you have two solid people that you're willing to run out there as a starter. When you see Derek Simmons, Logan Hallen, Jake Taylor, same situation. If Jake Taylor is playing right tackle for you in game one against Illinois State, Like there's that. Those are the pieces to where you look at it and you go, man, there's so much quality depth up, throughout this, lineup. And Jay, you only get to put 22 guys as starters, right? And I'm not counting the special teams, but 11 on offense, 11 on defense. You only get that. And so if you're looking at the running back room, all right, so Javonte Barnes, we heard best, preseason he's had since he's been here. And that's saying a lot because that's 3 straight years where there's a lot of hype around Javonte Barnes. But if you think that Jay Nott's not going to be out there, like you said, Jay, what do you need from Jay Nott? You need him some, live game snaps. You know who he is. You know that he had, the injury stuff, where you want to kind of keep him. It's a running back. Running backs, the reason why their careers are so short is because they take a lot of hits. 99% of the time, they're going to get hit on a play. There's not much fear if they don't get touched because that's usually a big long run or they take the ball out of bounds. And so when I see the oars, I don't see, man, nobody took this over. I see that's pretty awesome because look at the depth we have in that area. You go to the tight end, big talking point. You're telling me that your third string linebacker is now your leading tight end. We know that is a weakness on the team there's no stars there. But yeah. Jaren Kanak, and you heard it in the pressers, Jaren Kanak every day gave everything on the field and then gave exponential amount off the field too. In the film room, talking to coaches, hearing things, learning responsibilities. And those are the things that when you heard that from him as a linebacker, it was he just kind of didn't, really just, grasp the concept. And so he said, okay, in grasping concepts I don't have that time anymore. I'm a senior. I need to get out there and I need to do these things. And so that gets me excited. There are some areas here to where you see there's no oars, like a Deion Burks. Like we all knew what that was going to be. John Mateer, you don't want an oar at the quarterback right there. You want him to be a solid setup winner and leader of the team. Keontez Lewis, we are big proponents of the Keontez Lewis fan club already. And so I see a lot of competition. I see a lot of quality depth, and that's the big thing. My surprise, the biggest surprise I have is Boganowski over Robert Spears Jennings. And that has nothing to do with anything except for Jay. We're trying to replace quality players with better players, with more athleticism, with more capability. And Michael Boganowski was lost earlier in the fall camp with a lot of the talk about, Jaden Hardy, Reggie Powers, man out there. And then all of a sudden, the past couple weeks, Boganowski all of a sudden was getting a lot of talk. And so that was probably the one surprise that I saw. And the last thing I'll say before my filibuster is over is, Jay, it sure as heck ain't sad to see Gentry Williams there. There's no oar. It's my man from the 918 is healthy. All the injury issues that were confusing have now been cleared up. He had the surgeries. He's got some distance between the last surgery, and he is 100% healthy. And so that just brings a smile to my face because we know what his potential and capabilities are.
Tulsa stand up. My bad, y'all. I got a little emotional thinking about that, dog. Got a little something in my eye. But yeah, that to me was it. Gentry, starter. We're going to get to see him and see how healthy he really is for probably the first quarter. You're going to see Newcomb most of the game, probably. You'll probably see some of the freshmen. The other side, Cortland or Jacoby Johnson going together is a big deal to me. Jacoby Johnson is huge. You needed that. But yeah, those were big. To me, Kanak is fascinating. Ben Arbuckle talked about that in his presser of just how hard of a worker he was. And I like to hear that hard work is being rewarded. Barnes had his best camp, so yeah, he got it in there. Fasusi, they even after the scare last week with the reporting on him and heat related stuff. Him being up there shows us, they want to see what they've got.
Yeah.
He has now an opportunity to maul someone, and let's see if he's going to be good and set. This is the perfect opportunity to trial it out. You'll get a little bit of John Mateer early as he's working with his wide receivers. I think for me, the bigger one too was Keontez Lewis out there with Satania and Deion Burks. That we talked about that, right? That was one thing we talked about. How fascinating would that be to see that as a 3 wide receiver set? And here it is. Kearney, I'm still on the Zion Kearney's going to start train down the line. Right now, he's at the with Jermichael Carter. But, I mean, to be honest, Coop, do we really need to see more of Zion Kearney right now? I think they've seen enough of that in practice and how dominant he was that they're like, oh, you were out for a little bit. We're going to keep you healthy because we need you for the big games, especially SEC play. You're going to be critical in SEC play. So I don't expect to see – I expect to see Kearney in some snaps. I don't expect to see a lot of them because there's no reason to play him in this game because it's – no shade, Illinois State. So you got that. That's that depth chart. Let me know what y'all think. Hop in the comments. Y'all know we love to read what y'all got to say. Thank y'all for pulling up per the usual. Hit the like button if you're new to the channel. Subscribe, rate, review, give us 5. This is me putting in stops for ad reads that will be coming once the season starts. Pretty excited about that. We've got some cool, been working some stuff in the background. Got some good stuff coming for us and the evolution of the show. We'll prayerfully get some bigger stuff going so that, Coop can eventually quit his job. And I can be his sugar daddy. So anyway, with that.
I like it.
BV's presser, Coop. The press conference went down. It was definitely one of those that was interesting. I was going to combine it with the depth chart talk, but now we're going to do this separately. BV basically, he didn't throw shade, but man, he threw a hammer down on this one, dog. Saw Dari Noka's tweet basically talking about not only were we running around with 2.2 GPAs, and I get that fans don't really care about the GPAs of the players, when in all actuality you should. Education is still supposed to be a critical component of it. And honestly, GPAs to me, you don't have to have a 4.0, but effort gets you a guaranteed 3.0 at the collegiate level. Period. Like effort gets you that. Teachers know you. They're going to help you. They're going to find ways to help you get at least a 3.0 in their help. I took humanities in college and I was failing it literally the first month of it. So I went to my teacher's office hours and I said, look, I don't know why this information, I cannot retain it. It just will not stick. Can you help me? And he's like, yeah, just come to my office. Here's my office hours. You know what? Since you work at these times, you can come before at this time, before class, blah, 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 and we'll work through it. And that got me a C. And that was just because of the effort I put in. I probably didn't even deserve that. I think he was going to give me a B, but I was struggling so bad in the beginning that it was kind of hard to justify that. But no, real talk though, I eventually got to the point where I got a C in that class. He made sure I passed it. That teacher looked out for me like crazy. And that's really what that is. So that 2.2 GPA that BV talked about shows you effort in doing the right things. And then of course there's the failed drug test and all the other stuff. Not sure what drugs, probably just weed, but I don't know what drugs it was. At the time, of course, you couldn't do it, but I'd say now it's probably a lot better for them to smoke weed and take opiates. So we'll go into that in another day. That's another conversation that I don't even want to hear a lot of people's opinions on for the most part. Coop, yes, but not everybody else's. But yeah, you got a lot of stuff where people just weren't doing what they were supposed to do. And man, when you got to come in and really change that, rip it to the studs. Coop, remember when he said that at the first press conference? Get to pull this bad boy to the studs. Think about building a house, how long it takes. Like, luckily with this situation, the building materials, being humans, it's a little tougher because it takes a lot more time for the bodies and everything to develop. But shoot, man, we had not only did you go to the studs, you had drywall that broke. That you had, all them injuries last year. So what did you think about that though, man? He kind of really called Link out for the way he was running things.
People are going to do what they're coached to do or what they're allowed to do. And that's just a general, that can go across from parenting, from, your workplace to relationships. And he brought up a comment where he said, when you have the lower GPA, you have the failed drug test, which brought about a lot of like lackadaisical, like just approaches to several things. And you heard Arbuckle say it too, where he said, Brent Venables goes, in a way to where he does, the old adage of do anything like you do everything. And so if you have this whole scope of life and you're trying to build better men, number one, better men are going to make better choices. And so if you're asking these kids to be on point, to achieve excellence in the film room, on the practice field, on game days, but then you're saying, but I'm okay with you just kind of making silly choices Monday, Wednesday, Sunday, like those are the things that like it doesn't, the math ain't mathin' right there, Jay. So I understand that when you look at a Georgia and the 30 some odd traffic incidents, you look at, drug tests, none of that stuff matters to some of the fan base because the win-loss column looks pretty. But at the same time, Jay, I got to say this is, there's a reason why I think that Kirby Smart's kind of hedging right now is because you've got this great set of talent. And we've seen teams like Texas have great sets of talent, recruit top every year, and it didn't produce on the field. And so I just say this, Jay, is, if you can break some of these habits to where you are taking Monday through Friday and Sunday as serious as you're taking game day, you're going to be more available. You're going to avoid so many more situations. And how many of us would be absolutely livid if we find out that we don't have Jaden Ott, Michael Fasusi, Robert Spears-Jennings, Dominic Williams on game day because they had a domestic abuse situation. They failed a drug test. They got arrested for, possession. When we would lose our minds and be like, BV's lost the team. But then when he comes out and says, hey, man, I want a better quality individual, and that's what he's telling to the parents. You've watched the parent interviews. You want to understand that, like, when a parent's leaving their kid to a program, they want to make sure that the kid is still abiding by the same stuff that they would have done in the house, if not better. And so I'm all around this because if you're going after do anything like you do everything, do it with excellence. Be thoughtful about why you do stuff. Be thoughtful about how you're doing things. It's got to start off the field. And there's another adage where it says you are truly who you are when nobody's watching, and you don't have to think of the masks. And I think so many times in just humanity in general, we see it on social media. It goes across so many more things than even sports. Is so many people wear so many masks. And my grandfather used to tell me, if you always tell the truth, you never have to remember what you said.
Exactly. And that's what's most important.
If you live that way, then you don't have to backtrack and go, well, what am I going to tell Coach what I was doing on Thursday night because I got in trouble? Mm-hmm. If you know what your employees are doing, and that's what they are at this point. If you know what your employees are doing, the choices that you make, you can focus on coaching and getting this team better and reaching a championship level because you don't have to go back and go, man, I hope that they're not doing X, Y, Z, or man, I'm hoping that they're not, at a local bar at 1 p.m. at night, smacking around somebody. Like, you want to make sure that you can be faithful and, and confident in what you're giving to the players, so that they're giving it back.
And that's what's most important is making sure that you're getting from them what you expect. And BV harps on that heavily. And we've heard, like I said, the parents talk about that. That's the one thing. Their goal is to make sure that these players are better people on top of being really good football players. And I know some fans don't care about that. They're just like, look, if you give me championships, go break the law and get into, accidents and stuff all the time, or, speed, get in trouble for speeding. Like, a lot of fans don't care. I do, personally. I actually would like my players to be good people on top of them playing ball. But, we're different. I would like good role models because, unfortunately, that's the one thing that, kids look up to. They look up to sports figures. They look up to you as parents as well, too. But they do look up at sports figures because, that's who you see on the television. And it's cool to see them on television and be excited about seeing that. So... But no, that was pretty wild that BV's like, yeah, things were not very peachy. We had to do a lot of cleanup. And the fact that that's what we went through tells me a lot about how BV really has switched up the culture. And that's what y'all wanted. Better culture, better play. I mean, Lincoln gave us good wins. That's cool. But, yeah, you got to have better men on the field. But even to go with that, though, Coop, the next thing that was intriguing from – and I don't think anybody asked about this in the presser, which kind of bothered me, I think, because I'm not back and listen. I don't recall hearing anybody say anything about this. But, dog, we done went to, like, captains.
Yeah.
We have, like, captains. Like, we have team captains. That's it for the season. So you got your 7 players here from Troy Everett, Grayson Halton, Kip Lewis, John Mateer, Robert Spears Jennings, R. Mason Thomas, and Dominic Williams. That's your 7 captains for Team 131. I love the fact that we just went to went to just captains for the season. I don't think they're going to do game by game. Now, and I understood why BV did it. A lot of fans didn't like it, but I got why BV did it. It made sense in the context of he was trying to get everybody the opportunity to be a leader and really lead outside of, practice and lead on the field and stuff, which is a good thing. Yeah, that's, to me, huge. I love that. I love that we're doing that. What you think about that part of it?
First and foremost, I'm going to take a half a step back. One thing that happened in the press conference is somebody about 38 minutes in asked about Illinois State. And BV kind of chirped back. He's like, man, how long did it take for you guys to ask me a football question? And
I thought that was good.
And he was kind of
awareness.
Yeah, he was kind of snappy about it. And he said, y'all get on to me about my long rants at the beginning of press conferences. And why I point out this ties into the captains is in the past, when Brent Venables was approached with questions about his flaws and his mistakes, you saw him kind of want to explain it away. And this one, he delivered attitude. And I think that going with this and going with the team captains as a set team captains piece here is he looks at him and he says, all right, we are going to do things, and it all starts with you 7. It starts with the quarterback. It starts with the offensive line. It starts with the defensive line, and it starts with people who have been around here for a while. The one that I'm most excited about is Dom Williams. And I'll tell you this, Dom Williams is not going to have the stat sheet that's going to make people go, I want him on my team in the NFL. But from what he does and his dependability is the number one thing that stands out.
Consistent.
We lost our mind after the spring game last year when we found out that he was about to choose Oklahoma. He was down between us and LSU and Bama and Texas, and he chose OU. And he came here, and since then, not only has he been a great leader, he stepped in as a veteran presence and became a great leader on that young defensive line. And now you see that thing is going to be one of the best units in the country. And so, very excited about Dom. Same thing with RSJ. RSJ's been here. He is now the de facto leader, and he's been asked to step up. He was at the SEC Media Days. And so you also have Grayson Halton, who has always been a team favorite. Anytime we talk to defensive line recruits, G-Baby is somebody that they brought up, from Danny Okoye to Nigel Smith, even guys who end up choosing other programs. They always talked about G-Baby because he has gravity to him. And so I like this because I think that Brent Venables, his attitude this year is, all right, I'm not a punching bag anymore. I'm going to do some punching. And I think that this is the first punch that you throw out for the season is throwing these cats up here and saying, all right, we are going to rely on Dom Williams, R. Mason, John Mateer, RSJ, Kip, Grayson, Troy Everett. And those are the ambassadors of the team. And those are the guys that are going to be walking out, speaking to the officials, looking at the opposition in the eyes, at the coin flip. And I don't expect, any ever announcement to come out, but you'll probably see some of the rotational leadership, giving guys an opportunity. But when you got an issue, with the team, these are going to be the cats that are going to be the first ones out there speaking to the rest of the teammates.
Yeah, I'm actually, if there's the only player that I'm surprised that's not on this list that we've heard really good about was Fabechi Wewu. That's the only player on here that I'm shocked. But BV did mention that the votes were in. There was a ton of, the votes were close when BV talked about this initially. Like, there was a lot of people that the players look up to because the players voted for this. And that was the only player I was actually kind of surprised it wasn't on there. He led the team in snaps last year, over 800 snaps. He's the only one that got over 700 snaps last year. And he has been the definition of consistency. The expectation, is that the expectation truly was that for some fans that they thought that he would end up losing the job on the line, but for the staff, it was like, no, he's one of the hardest workers, and he's done everything to get better. And we've seen players get better their second year with Bill Beatonbow. That's been, McKay Matawa was one that a lot of y'all, I'm saying y'all because y'all's fans, y'all weren't fond of him. And he got a lot better his second year in the system, and then he became a fan favorite. He get ejected and everything, and everybody's excited. He fist bumps Joe C. walking off the field, and y'all were just pumped. We all were pumped.
Yeah,
but that was the good thing was that you got that I think that he's going to be one that is going to really stand out a lot more than people expect. He'll be one of those quiet, really good players this year. Like I said, he had over 864 snaps to be exact. Jesus Christ, he played all the time, and now all we got to do is just get continue to grow and get better. So, anything else from the presser that jumped out from you? Anything from Ben Arbuckle? Oh yeah, Ben Arbuckle's going to be on the sideline. Cool. He's going to be on the sideline, bro. He's going to be on the sideline with Kuzieski and Joe John Finley in the booth talking back and forth with each other, which I am very excited about that.
Yeah. Well, there's so many comps to Lincoln. To Lincoln, the offensive coordinator, not the head coach. But there's so many comps there. Like, first and foremost, when he's talking, the amount of times, and Jay, this is for us, this probably means a lot more than most people. But how many times after they asked Ben Arbuckle a question did he say, no, awesome question or great question? Like, he acknowledged it. And I'm seeing not a 29-year-old man who is getting a new toy and you're like, just please don't break it. I'm seeing a guy who is building his brand, and he said that he leads with his energy. He watches BV and he watches his engagement. And when BV brings it every day, he's going to bring it every day. Yep. And when he brings it every day, his staff brings it every day. I like the aspect of him saying, I want to be able to be down on the sideline because I want to have more, right when they come off the field, coaching opportunities, have the ability to look John Mateer in the eye or Mike in the eye or Whit Neubauer in the eye and have conversations with them. Hey, what did you see? Be a presence out there. And, you look around the SEC and we've seen the stuff with Hugh Freeze and Jackson Arnold, and a lot of that is the opposite end. We saw Hugh Freeze do so many yellings at Peyton Thorne last year, yelling at Jackson Arnold through practice this year. And it's hard to feel like that chemistry is there. But if you remember, even, Baker coming off the field, Kyler coming off the field, Jalen Spencer coming off the field, and I remember seeing things where Lincoln would, have his hand on their shoulder and have them, eye to eye. And I try to teach my daughter that with her soccer coaches is when you are getting instruction, they know that you're in and that you are on the same page when you make that eye contact and when you make that ability to listen to that hard moment. It's easy to high-five your coach after a touchdown or a long completion. It's easy to do that. But after you make a mistake, and there will be mistakes on offense, this offense is not going to be mistake-free. But to be able to have them come over to the sideline and say, Jaron, tell me this. This is something we practice. On this route, you are supposed to read the linebacker. If he's inside, you go outside. If he's outside, you go inside. Explain to me what happened there. And there's going to be a lot of that tutelage that with Ben Arbuckle being down on the sideline, that he is going to be able to real time fix some of these issues. Where up in the press box, it's the telephone game. Hey, can you go grab Jaron? Well, now you got a GA running down trying to find Jaron. Bring him over. Hey, put the headset on. And then Jaron's watching everything else go on, and he's paying attention to the field, and he's worried about the fans, and he's worried about his teammates, and he's trying to, make it look like. And so there's just a lot of, one-on-one intentionality. And when you were listening to Ben Arbuckle speak in this press conference, the one thing that I felt was like, man, he is young, but nobody's going to listen to this press conference and be like, that guy's not a few weeks out or a few years out from running his own program, because he seems to have the bones of the house are there for him. And now he just needs to prove it at a bigger stage. And so we should enjoy Ben Arbuckle because, Jay, I can't say that 4 years from now he's going to be at the University of Oklahoma.
Yeah, and that's, to me, it's the kind of why I said, the expectations around here should be, prepare yourself in 2 years, maybe 3, if we get lucky, that somebody's going to snatch him up. If he produces the way we want him to produce, that is the inevitable ending to this relationship, is he's going to get a head coaching job. Teams search and go after offensive-minded guys because offensive-minded coaches always lead to quick wins. Every time. They're guaranteed to get you quick wins. So the numbers will always look great. The question is, do they get you and elevate you to the championship level, to where you're playing for the championship rather than getting right there to the playoffs and that's it. You want to get up there more than anything. So that's going to be the biggest question, is how long we get to hang on to Ben Arbuckle if he produces. So pretty excited about that. Let me know what y'all think. Hop in the comments. We want to hear your thoughts. Thank you all once again for pulling up. Please hit that like button. If you are new to the channel, subscribe, rate, review, give us 5 stars. Coop, let's wrap up. Let's preview the competition. We've got Illinois State coming up this week. I am in every way, shape, or form excited because that means that we are here for football, baby. It's game week. There's a lot of things to consider going into game week. This is Illinois State, as we know, just kind of a background on the team, just for everybody's, for y'all to understand. Illinois State was, let me see. They went 10-3 last year. They were one of the better teams in FCS. They are not a bad team, but they're an FCS team. That's the thing I think I need everybody to remember. From there, though, as the FCS team that they are, the thing that we have to keep in mind in this conversation is last year when they played Iowa to start the season, Iowa beat them 40-0. Iowa doesn't score points on offense. We know this.
No.
So Iowa won 40-0. So I'm going to give you my first thing. You give me something next, Coop. We'll go back and forth to wrap it up before we talk about some SEC games. I want to know, what about this game that you will be keeping your eyes on? The one thing that I will be paying attention to the most, because this was the number one red flag for us last season, third down conversions. We actually, what was it?
0 for
we
8.
We were 1 for 12
Yeah.
last year. 1 for 12 on third down conversions last year, and that was the red flag that jumped out to me the most.
I think the speed option touchdown between Tatum and Hawkins was the first conversion at the end of the game.
It was. I will be paying attention to that, number one. That is the thing that will be the biggest thing that I will be watching, is not only how many third downs we have, how many we convert on. Coop, what about you?
Again, Brent Venables in the presser said, this is a playoff team. Was it in a different tier of college football? Yes. But that means that in the game that they play, they are very good at. So typically when you see those situations, I think Oklahoma State played, the championship winner 2 years ago, to start the season off for the FCS. What happens is you have guys who they don't have the athletic traits that a D1 guy has, so they may not have that first step burst. They may not have that that ceiling on the pass rush, the ability to read to keep up on defense or keep up on offense. But these guys have big bodies. So just looking through their defensive line, you've got a 335-pounder sophomore out of Orlando. You've got defensive ends who are 270, 265. Another D tackle at 295, 290. So you're going to have real boys, real bodies. Now the explosiveness is not going to be able to match Oklahoma. So winning at the point of attack is a really, really big thing for me. Is you should not be losing multiple battles in a series along the offensive line. Along the defensive line, you should not be getting stymied play after play. You need to have disruptive plays. So I'm looking for disruption from the lines. Is the offensive line getting pushes, playing past the line of scrimmage in the positive?
Yep.
That's something we couldn't even do against Temple or Houston last year. And then on the defensive line, these guys, plain and simple. You can line up a straight defensive line rush, and you need to have your responsibilities on the edge, and then you need to have the push up the middle. And I want to see that. I expect this defensive line to be phenomenal, and there should be zero excuses. This needs to be a 8+ sack type of an affair. 12+ tackles for losses. So I want to see winning the vast majority of battles at the line of scrimmage.
That's a good point. Next up for me, though, on that, as you made a good point, last year to start the year against Temple, we gave up 97 yards. I think it was 197 yards. That was the first time that Oklahoma had given up under 200 yards in a game. So I think it was like we did that with Arkansas State in 23. But we really hadn't did that against actual FBS opponents. But Temple was that. This is FCS. My expectation is this should be less than 200 yards in this game. The defense, as you mentioned about the defense and the way they should play, I 100% am in that exact same mindset. There should be a lot of sacks. But the biggest thing for me is in that game, we should not allow more than 100. Then we shouldn't give more than 200 yards. It should be under 100. Under 200 yards easily. Maine got 251. 144 pass, 107 rush, and you could just tell that we were just kind of just meh in that game to start. I want that to be less. Now, third down efficiency in that game against Maine, we were 10 for 14, which was fantastic, and Maine was a bad team last year. Illinois State is not. We need to make sure that we get more than... We should convert way more than 70% of our third downs. Well, I mean, the yard discrepancy was 665 to 251. So that kind of happens if you do a whole bunch of explosive plays constantly.
Yeah.
And the other team they're basically the offense gets off the ball off a field quick and you quickly go score right behind it. Yeah, you're going to give up some yards. But I think in the end, for the majority of this, under 200 yards is what I want out of this team. Under 250 is fine, but under 200 is what I would prefer.
So I'm going to stick with this. Again, I don't think that you're not going to see offensive linemen that are 5'11", 235 pounds or anything like that. They have actual competitive-sized players up and down the board. These guys, again, it's just explosive traits, and it goes even to wide receivers and defensive backs. Their wide receivers I mean, you've got 6'2", you've got 6'3", you've got 6'3", 6'1", 6'2", 5'11". So you've got decent sized wide receivers. So from the defensive back position, what I want to see is put yourself in the spot to make plays. So for our DBs, we heard a lot of great stuff coming out of them. They were covering Keontez Lewis at 6'2". They were covering an Ivan Carrion at 6'6". They were covering bigger receivers in fall camp. And they're going to have some size to defend for our defensive backs. So make the play in front of you. Don't get your busted assignments. I want to see perfection at that level. Is we should not have a bust. And you know what? If there is a bust, it's a minimal situation. Do we have a situation where maybe somebody, takes an inside route in front of a safety and, a deep out route, and behind the corner? How do they communicate when it comes to those things?
Yep.
So I want to see some good stuff right there. Now on the opposite side, for our wide receivers, they don't have a bunch of short people out there on their defensive backs. A lot of their defensive backs are good size too, but for the receivers, they're not staying with you. You should win the speed battle without a shadow of doubt. So create separation. That was the biggest thing that we saw last year, was the inability to get off the line and create separation. And I got to think this is going to be a well-coached team, and they're going to make us prove that. So get off, get out, and when you get the ball thrown to you, make the play that you can make. You don't have to be spectacular. These don't have to be 80-yard touchdown, routes, massive deep posts. But you know what? When you run a deep in or a crosser, catch the ball.
That's what's critical. I want to see catches, and let me add to that. What I want to see is catches. Hey, Coop, do you know where Illinois State is located? Besides
I
the
will
state
say
of Illinois, the city.
I do not know where Illinois State is located, and I bet you're going to make it a fun conversation of.
Yeah, I think this was funny when I saw this, because I'm trying to find their depth chart because I want to put it up, but I can't find it anywhere for the life of me to be able to show the graphic. They're in Normal, Illinois. Normal, not they're coming to Norman from Normal. That is a very fascinating nugget.
That's pretty funny.
That I think we should all. That's a very fascinating nugget. I like that. That had me cracking up. I'm like, wait, what?
Is there an abnormal Illinois, or is there an odd Illinois?
Abnormal would be interesting if there is an abnormal Illinois. I'm going to have to go Google that and see if that exists. But I think Normal, Illinois just cracked me up when I was looking for this depth chart. But lastly, for me, really is that, like you said, wide receiver, I only see people catch the ball. Drops are going to happen, but we're playing with a bunch of new receivers, and we're kind of wanting to see what we have. So my expectation is that we need to make sure that we are making these catches and we're making the magic happen. That is what I want to see big time out of them. What's the last thing that you are really looking at in this game?
I want to see different paces from the offense. I want to see a quicker paced approach from the offense. And, I don't expect Mateer to be playing. Listen, we didn't expect Jackson Arnold to be out there but we understood because he was a young kid.
He needed to be.
But I want to see pace. I want Ben Arbuckle to dial up the intensity, but I also want him to slow it down, and I want to play in a box. So that is going to have a lot to do with guys making plays, getting back to the line, going quickly, popping out, taking some time, and going. I want to see the running backs be able to, the offensive line to create holes up the middle to create some explosive plays, and then also to be able to attack the edge and create some explosive plays there. I think that I want to see a good balanced attack from a lot of different schematic standpoints. Ben Arbuckle is very, very good at creating opportunities for his playmakers. And so I want to see that. I'm interested to see, what type of RPO. And listen, RPO became a word that we want, or a phrase that we wanted to avoid at the end of even Gabriel to even last year, because the RPOs were just not balanced. But that is a staple of what Arbuckle does, and Mateer is super comfortable with it. So I'd like to see John Mateer make some good, some good choices and some good decisions, because if he's able to do those things and he's able to create some tempo when he wants tempo, that's going to be very, very good for our offense. And after last year, again, tying back to the press conference, what did you want to do? He said, I don't want to disparage anything that happened last year or speak on anything that happened last year, but he preached about confidence. So I want to see some confidence instilled in this offense. And I usually don't say stuff like this, Jay, but I want fans losing their minds for the best of best at the end of this season or at the end of this game. And I want them to start talking crazy. I want people who are doubters and didn't have their feet in the water. By the way, if you ain't in the water right now, Jay, you are looking beyond the fence. And I don't want you trying to jump in the pool after week 6. I want you in the water now. It's all or nothing. Do everything like you do anything. And I want to see people doing that. But I want to see at the end of this game, I want people people talking about Mateer for Heisman, because that's what you need to see. You need to see such a clean effort that fans can't help themselves.
Exactly. I expect y'all to be heavily in this water. All right, let's go rapid fire around these games to wrap up this. SEC, we got Texas at Ohio State. Not gonna lie. Actually, let's start early. We got Auburn going up against Baylor. That's freaking huge. That's gonna be a fun game on Friday night. I'll have dual screens going. I'll be watching Auburn Baylor with Colorado and Ja Tech. I want to see what Prime's going to do. But how you feeling about this Auburn-Baylor game?
Baylor should not be able to keep up internally on the defensive line, offensive line. Like, that's where I think Auburn has a massive advantage right there. But Baylor has per my opinion, Baylor has the advantage from the quarterback perspective. They got an advantage from the head coach perspective. And I would probably say just coaching in general. And so I think that this is probably a game to where, if based off everything we kind of know about the Auburn offense, I think that this is a game that probably stays pretty close early. But I think that the athleticism and I think coaching and just the relationship between Sawyer Robinson and that offense, I think Baylor gets this in the end. But I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I think that Auburn's lines are going to keep the game close for a while.
Yeah, I think Auburn's going to play a lot better than people expect. But I am very, 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 very excited to see what Baylor's going to be this season. Like, for real. Like, Baylor's one of the teams for me that I think they're going to be the bigger shock for college football. I think they're going to be a really big shocker this year, especially in the Big 12. I think they actually have a chance, in my personal opinion, to play for the Big 12 championship game. I'm just keeping it a buck. I'm not going to even pretend like I don't think Baylor's going to be good. I think they're going to be good. There's a good chance that they could win this game. And with all of the returning production, all of the seniors that they have, similar to Auburn's got a lot of veteran presence except for a quarterback. But Baylor's got the veteran quarterback too. Like, Sawyer Robertson is very highly regarded. I do think that this game's going to be interesting. All right. Texas and let's get out of this one. Texas. Why'd I go Big 12? SEC. Texas versus, well, actually Syracuse and Tennessee is going to be interesting. Tennessee's, of course, a 13.5-point favorite. It is in Atlanta. Fran Brown, to me, has put together a very disciplined team there up in Syracuse. He's done a really good job of turning things around, in my personal opinion. I think Syracuse may be a little bit more of a shocker in that game. What you think?
I'm with you. Now, I will say this. I've seen Syracuse with some good positive feelings preseason in the past. I remember the Clemson game. I think it was one of the games where Trevor Lawrence got hurt and Syracuse had all that offense. And the thing where they could not overcome was just the discrepancy in the athletes along the lines. Listen, Jay, if Syracuse gets off to a hot start, Tennessee fans are going to lose their ever-loving minds, because I think that if you create doubt in Tennessee early with everything that's been going on, Jay, it could be a big upset at 11 a.m. week 1. But Syracuse is going to have to get out and start some things pretty quickly. That's plain and simple. That's what's going to have to happen. If Syracuse can't get something going on early, then I think Tennessee is going to be able to lean in on them. Last year, they leaned on Dalen Sampson and that defense. Sampson ain't there anymore. You can't. I want to talk to Sampson. He ain't there anymore. So I think that Syracuse is a good team, and they're going to make some noise in the ACC, but they got to get off to an early and good start and create some doubt in Tennessee, because I think that this team with Tennessee, there's a good chance that that they could crumble.
Very true. I'm curious to see what Syracuse's quarterback is going to look like. Was Angeli is his name. I'm really intrigued to see what he becomes for them. He's going to be he's the Notre Dame transfer. He's got some experience. I'm really intrigued. He should be the starter. I expect him to start. He's the starter. I expect him to give us something. But they did a really good job. Who was at Cal McCord last year? He was actually pretty darn good for them last year. Like, really good statistically. I'm here for that. So they've got their entire offensive line is basically transfers at Syracuse for the most part. They got a lot of transfers on defense, but it's a lot of older players. They may start a freshman at corner, which would be interesting. We'll see if that happens. This is from our lads. But, man, I forgot. Jonte Cook is up there at Syracuse. Oh, boy. It's going to be funny. So, I like that game. That's one to definitely keep my eyes on for. Texas and Ohio State, what you think?
Both of these teams. I'm going to go out. Jay, you can clip this one. Texas is number one in the preseason because nobody else had faith in Penn State, and nobody else really took it and seized it. So somebody had to be number one, and that's why Texas is number one. Somebody has to be there. Both of these teams are replacing a lot. Texas is going to be rolling out a guy who would have been as their starting defensive tackle, a guy who would have been third string at Ohio State this year. Ohio State's replacing a lot of folks. I give the edge to Ohio State because it's up there. I see this maybe being, I think that line is dead on. I think that this is a field goal at the end of the game. And if Texas is kicking it, there's going to be some clinching going on because kicking was an issue for them last year. But Ohio State's going to lean in on the veteran leadership of their defense, guys like Caleb Downs. They've got receivers. Every single dude that's running out there, wide receiver, until they prove me wrong, they are the best unit in the league. But you're replacing both your DC and your OC. Hartline's now going to be calling some plays. How does his relationship end with Ryan Day? Does Julian Sayin rely on his playmakers, and do they keep a game called to where you're just turning the ball to the playmakers? You don't have Travion Henderson anymore at the running back. So I think that this is going to be a low-scoring game. The total being at 47.5. Jay, I could see this being just a little bit underneath that. Both teams are going to be doing body blows and small jabs and kind of feeling each other out. So when it's time to take your swing, who's going to be able to land the blow at the end of the game? Right now I'm going Ohio State, and I think it is a one-score game.
I think it's going to be a close game too. I think it's going to be that one should be a fun game. Good noon, big noon kickoff. Unfortunately for Ohio State and Texas, neither one of them can get away from those 11 o'clock kickoffs. So glad that we're out of the Big 12. Alabama, Florida State is, of course, one of the big boys for the weekend. Alabama 13.5-point favorite down at Doak Campbell Stadium. I don't like that spread. I think it's too high. I know that we think that Florida State's dead, but I'm not going to say that. I think that Norvell bounces back. I think their mean is in between that perfect season they had with Jordan Travis and what happened last year. I think they're in the middle there. So 7-8 win team, probably most likely. I think that spread's high. I don't think Alabama covers it. I think it's going to be a lot closer game than we think. Florida State's done a really good job of getting trench players in the portal. They've done that for years. Their biggest issue last year was quarterback play and just what Norvell was doing. Now they got themselves another OC, right? It's going to make it even more interesting to see exactly how this offense is ran as a former head coach. And most of their Florida State setup. I mean, you got Squirrel White as well as Deuce Robinson coming in at your wide receiver. A ton of transfers on the line and quarterback. But Tommy, I think, is ready to play at this level. This is going to be an interesting game overall because most of Florida State's defense is back, and they actually had a really good defense, pretty solid defense. So, but I think Alabama wins it, but I think it's a lot closer than that number.
Yeah. First of all, I'll say this. Castellano's coming over from Boston College. He is just a pain in the butt. He can do so many different things. He is, once you think you got him, he somehow scoots out. Alabama's defensive line, I think, is going to be able to keep him reined in. But you're breaking in, a new quarterback at Alabama with Ty Simpson. You're going to have playmakers all over the place. Ryan Williams wants to avoid the sophomore slump, and he wants to go big. And I think that you got a chance to really highlight him for not only the Blitnikoff, but potentially the Heisman this year. So I'm interested to see, what they do drawing up plays for Ryan right from the get. I know that they lost the big running back. He's going to be out for a few weeks. So what does the running back rotation look like? And, that's probably the bigger key of the game, Jay, is, with a new quarterback, you want to be able to get the ball in your playmakers' hands and then, take some, space off for the running backs, using the running backs. But now with Bam being out, that's going to be something there. Florida State needs to be able to show something here because I think that their season is going to dictate on their internal mentality. And if this gets to be one of those situations, Alabama in the Nick Saban years, now it's not Nick Saban anymore, but they'd go out and play Wisconsin week one and throw out a 35-0. The fans would be losing their minds because they didn't score 60, but they'd shut down everything from a less athletic team. This ain't Wisconsin, it's Florida State. They've got athletes. So you can't have a situation where Alabama is winning this game by 20 plus, for the sake of the psyche of the Florida State fans.
Yeah, it's true. It's a good point. Lastly, the two big boys to end it. You've got the biggest game to me is LSU Clemson. This is going to be critical, especially for LSU, who hasn't won a opening week in 5 years. 6 years.
I think it's 5 years.
Yeah, this would be the sixth, which isn't, a good thing. While at the same time, shout out to LSU for playing big games every first week of the season. Can't even be mad at them for that. Yeah. That, to me, I can commend. You put yourself out there like that. It's pretty darn good. I think Clemson does win this game, though. LSU spent a lot of money bringing in a lot of transfers, and Clemson is the complete opposite. They're all homegrown kids that worked together for years. So I was kind of leaning LSU to pull the upset. I think Clemson's going to end up winning this one. I think Clemson is the team that, because they've got all of these players that have been on the same roster together as juniors, mostly juniors, playing with a few sophomores. Sammy Brown looks like he's going to start. Dang it, I wanted Sammy Brown so bad. But their offensive line is completely veteran, graduates, seniors. Like, I'm looking on this roster now. They'll have one edge, it looks like, that's potentially a transfer starting. They got a wide receiver, but their wide receiver room is back to kind of what it was. TJ Moore, Brian Westco. This Clemson team should be a problem for everybody. Give me Clemson to win this one. They should cover the spread too. I think that's a good thing.
They got it at the house. I mean, that's where you start, number one. I think that Cade
Death
Klubnik
Valley versus Death Valley. That's fascinating. But
yeah. I think that Cade Klubnik, there's a lot of people who have him very, very, very highly rated in rankings, returning quarterback, everything. His first year, it was tough because I think the wide receivers were a little bit lacking there. So now he's got guys who've been there for a little while. The game's going to be decided when the Clemson's D-line lines up against LSU's offensive line. And Jay, let's just not, bury the lead here. A few weeks ago, LSU fans across the country were terrified with a potential ACL tear for Nussmeier. We find out that he did get injured. It's a recurring thing. But that offensive line has been an issue in fall camp. And I'm 99% sure I can say that Clemson's defensive line, their frontline guys are going to win a lot of battles against the LSU offensive line. They were replacing guys like Will Campbell. They lost a lot on the offensive line. And so if you're LSU and Brian Kelly, you got to get the ball out quick. You've got to be able to lean in on your running game and try to keep Clemson off balance, because if you let that defensive line dictate things, not only are you going to lose the game and probably lose it big, but you could also lose your quarterback for the season and start rolling the Michael Van Buren era. And I promise you that is Brian Kelly loses a big game here, and his hot seat is unsittable. So that's what I'm feeling right here. I think it's going to be Clemson, and I'm going to go with Clemson by 10. I think that they're going to cover the spread pretty easily. Number one being, at home, having the defensive line that they have. But I will say this is, if you can keep your fair share of wins on the offensive line for LSU and get the ball out to the playmakers, it's going to be tough on Clemson. Now, that front seven is legit for Clemson. It's the back. It's the back end. How does the back end, the safeties and the defensive backs, stay up with all the athletes that LSU is going to be running out of receiver?
Yeah. Oh my God, LSU is going to have a whole bunch of good receivers out there. Clemson puts out some pretty good corners too, and the wide receiver room for Clemson is going to be. I mean, LSU is considered DBU. They've been considered that for a bit. The question is going to be not Dallas Baptist. They're considered DBU, Defensive Back University. Question is going to be, can LSU keep up with those Clemson wide receivers too? They've got some good ones. Lastly, South Carolina and Virginia Tech. Shout out South Carolina. The running back, was it Faison? He's been approved to play. Razul Faison. That's couldn't remember his first name for the life of me, but came from Utah State. Solid running back. I think he's going to be their bell cow. He was approved by the NCAA, so he will be playing for them going forward. So one of the biggest questions I have for him, which he's like 6 foot, 200 and almost 20 pounds. He's a solid back. The biggest question I had for South Carolina was really running back. Who's going to run the ball? Because they don't have Rocket Sanders. Outside of Lenore Sellers, him being the focal point, who's going to catch the ball? Who's going to be that wide receiver? But my boy's been telling me Mazo Bennett is the one to keep our eyes on. I don't have any faith in Vitek this year. They disappointed me last year. They brought back the most returning production in last year. So in my mindset, I expected them to be really solid last year, and they dropped a dud. So no faith in Vitek in this game. I am hardcore on South Carolina to win this one, and they should easily cover that spread. What do you think?
Faison is a guy who, again, you're playing at Utah State. You're not seeing the quality athletes. So when you look at his game logs, USC with a little bit of a tougher defense held him somewhat in check. I mean, he still averaged 6 yards a carry. Utah, he averaged 6 yards a carry. Temple, he averaged 5 yards a carry. It looked like most of his production came from because the offense in general was having in passing only situations. So I think that he is an upgrade over Rocket Sanders this year, and that makes them a danger because you're going to have a nice running attack. Virginia Tech doesn't have the capability to shut down one side of the ball or one aspect of the ball. This is going to be a game to where South Carolina should go out kind of how OU is going to go out against Illinois State. Like, you just go out, you run your stuff, you get your win, probably shorten the game, work on some things, from the passing game, but you're going to lean in on the running game. You're going to lean in the fact on Sellers and Faison are probably going to be guys that are going to have a bulk. I I would say if you're South Carolina, your goal is to rush the ball for 350 plus. Like that's your goal for the game. And I don't think that they're going to be able to keep stacked up, Virginia Tech, that is. But it's in Atlanta. Virginia Tech early in the season, man, they either throw out a dud or a miracle. And so don't be surprised if Virginia Tech stays close for a little while. But I just think that South Carolina leans on them and just runs the ball early, often, and then does it again.
Yeah, that's pretty solid assessment because I kind of see the exact same thing, right? There's not much else to really say in that game. South Carolina should give us exactly what we were expecting in that game. If they drop that one, though, dog, it's that season's done. I'm just going to say that there. They lose that game, South Carolina's season is done. I don't expect them to lose it, so don't take that as me saying that. I'm just telling you, if they lose that game, season's over. All right. We're out. Thank y'all for pulling up for the recording. Hit the like button. If you're new to the channel, subscribe, rate us, review us, give us 5. We'll be back Sunday post game.
What?
Game. It's going to be a game. What? We'll be back Sunday.
That game will be going on, right? We'll be able to kind of give you updates on that South Carolina game. We should, because that's, never mind. It'll be earlier in the day. So
it's an earlier day. I don't think there's no actual night game, which is really weird.
Notre Dame and Miami.
Yeah,
is Sunday
that's what it is.
So that'll be on while we're on.
We'll
live.
be watching that game while we are live. So we'll be able to do that as like a watch along while we talk about everything. Or we may go a little bit early. I don't know. We'll see kind of what the Sunday looks like. I know Coop has beautiful family things probably to do for Labor Day weekend. I ain't doing ish besides sitting on my butt. So we may go a little early so that we don't miss this game, or we may watch along while we talk about it. So thank y'all once again for the love and support. The channel's growing. We're gonna expand our coverage. We're gonna talk more SEC ball. We're gonna talk more, all around. Of course, we'll still be homers, but we're gonna heavily lean into talking more objectively about the opposition. I think it'll be fun. It'll be a great way to grow what we do. So again, thanks for pulling up. We'll still have Sooner-centric stuff too, so don't get it twisted. We're not gonna abandon everybody, but again, thanks for pulling up. Hit the like button. If you're new to the channel, subscribe, rate, review, give us 5. And we'll chop it on each and every one of y'all after Coop's done coughing in a few days. Peace.